can you see my screen, right?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Should we start now?
Yeah, we can. Definitely.
Okay, thank you once again, everyone, for attending. I'm going to let Rajat and Baji do the talking.
Right. Well, firstly, thank you to Jasneed Ban for giving me the chance to do this talk, and thank you for everyone that's joining. And though the topic for today is the spirit of the Sikhs, and before I go into speaking about the spirit of the Sikhs, I just want to say one thing. My knowledge and my anything that I'll be talking about today, right, it's only limited to what I've read so far, right? So obviously, there's a lot more people out there who know better than me, who know more than me. So please research and do your own, gain your own knowledge in your own way as much as possible, right? So anything I'll say today is something that I've been able to sort of get access to in the course of the last few years. So firstly, I will start with Sat Kartar, Guru Barakal, Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Shri Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. The first half of the Fateh itself, it was first said by Guru Nanak Dev Ji during the time when he went to Mecca and he met one of the local qazis there whose name was Rukuddin. And this was noted in one of the person who observed this meeting is called Tajaluddin's diary. So the point is the fact that it's trying to, what the whole idea is behind this fatih, right, is that it's making us understand a very basic thing, the fact that the Lord is the sole truth, and it's all down to the all-powerful, timeless God. Sat Kartar, referring to the Lord being the truth, and Guru Barakal, referring to the fact that the Almighty is timeless as well. So the next thing, which I'll just outline the objectives of this today's talk, which is to understand, just to understand the overview of Guru Sahib's timeline, identify the important figures of the 18th century Sikh Itihas, explain the driving force behind the Sangharsh of the Sikhs as well, and the Khalsa in the 18th century, and analyze how it all links with the spirit of the morchi, and the farmers' protest today. Okay. So we're on to the next slide now. Okay, right. I know there's a lot of information that you probably would be coming across on your screen right now, but I'll just try to, because speaking about Guru Sahib themselves, I think we can speak about them for hours and hours. Like, there's no certain time limit we can put to it. But I will just quickly go through in terms of certain key events, certain key things that they try and bring in during their physical lifetime. So, firstly, when Guru Nanak Dev Ji arrived on this planet, on this earth, they were able to analyze. Now, this is something interesting, which a lot of Sikh and a lot of youth that nowadays is coming to understand. Guru Nanak Dev Ji, the kind of personality they had, right? We seem to sort of first used to think, obviously, as in our younger days and as a child, that they're very they come across very peaceful, very soft, and very what they say is nirmal. So they would come across as very patient and very nice. But Guru Nanak Dev Ji's thought process was a lot more revolutionary. Now, even the term revolutionary, right, is unfair to say that, because all these terms can apply, but they don't define the gurus. That's one thing we have to understand. And even when we refer to Sikh Dharm, when we refer to Sikh as a religion, even the term religion, it being obviously a Western terminology, it cannot be put. You can't confine the Sikh Dharma within that term, within the term religion. So Sikh Dharma itself is a lot more vishal, as I say, a lot more greater than any terminology. So are the gurus. So that's what I'm trying to get at personally. So yeah, when speaking about the first Guru, Guru Nanak Dev Ji, they analyzed and understood what the political, religious, and educational system was like during the time. Right? They understood the fact that a lot of the Rajas, the Hindu Rajas, so we know that Rajputs at the time were known to be, Rajas in Rajasthan, as well as some of the Rajput Rajas in Jammu Kashmir, and then you had more towards Himachal Pradesh, near the mountains, and even some of the Rajas that were down in south, near Maharashtra, known as Marathe at the time. They all had their own sort of purposes. They weren't really united. So this is what we have to sort of think, sometimes, that the Guru Sahib at the time, he was able to see the fact that, okay, so this is the problem. There is no unity. Unity is unity is something which I feel is very, very important, and obviously the Guru Sahib at the time could see the fact that it's very important for any community to maintain peace and be able to maintain balance. But recognizing the fact that there was no balance amongst the Hindus themselves, as well as a kind of system that was established at the time known as Brahmanical system, obviously with the whole idea of caste within it, which was dominating at the time and still is to today's day and age as well. So recognizing that, Guru Sahib understood, Guru Nanak Dev Ji understood at the time that, okay, this is something which, needs to be tackled. And we need to establish a new system which challenges such thought process. The other challenge was from military point of view, as well as ideological as well, which was by the Mughal Empire at the time, right? The Babur, who first came to establish the empire in India by invading Hindustan. So it was known as Hindustan at the time, not India. So by invading Hindustan, he was trying to make sure the fact that he suppresses and oppresses the masses of Hindustan as much as possible, loots it. So then obviously from economic point of view, the country becomes weakened. So then eventually then he gets to empower it. Take over the power over it. And that's literally what was Guru Nanak Dev Ji was able to sort of analyze in front of him. When he obviously saw that, he started to understand the next thing that needs to be done is to introduce concepts such as Nanak Raj, as in, by that what they mean is believing in one. Hence why they were able to establish Kartarpur, which is now in West Punjab, so in Pakistan Punjab side now, and be able to practice the idea of Begumpura. Now, term Begumpura comes from Bhagat Ravidas Ji's and their thought process. But the idea of Begumpura, right, what it's referring to is basically there being a society without any sorrows. So where no one is treated like a second class or a third class citizen. Understanding that idea, they were able to take this in consideration and be like, okay, this is a society which, we feel like we should be able to practice and live within. And that's exactly what they're trying to bring it around. Hence why we know how much they travel during their physical lifetime, how much they travel towards different parts of Asia, going to as far as Tibet, to obviously going as far as the Middle East as well. And that's one thing we have to understand. Like they were able to sort of go to different places and go as southern to like Sri Lanka as well. So going to these different parts of the world, they were able to establish this, or they tried professing this concept of believing in one and challenging the status quo. I think that's one more thing we have to sort of understand is the fact that Guru Nanak Dev Ji had challenged the status quo by not just from ideological point of view, but also from education, political, and religious point of view as well. So that's the key thing which we have to remember. And one more thing which they had done during their physical lifetime, right, was to have a succession plan. Now, succession plan, what that refers to is obviously when someone's a king, I'm going to put this in the most casual sense possible. When someone's a king, they make sure that someone that becomes a king after them, they are worthy for it. A lot of the times, this used to happen when someone used to sort of pass away. But during the time of Guru Nanak Dev Ji, during his physical lifetime, he made sure, right, that Bhai Lehna Ji gets that Gurgaddi. So the idea is that we can't confine the gurus from physical point of view, from physical body point of view. We have to look at them from jodh, from the idea, from the kind of concepts which they brought about. That's how we need to look at them. And we can't be asking questions like who were the gurus? Ask what were the gurus about? What did they do? Right? What did they introduce? That's what needs to be asked. Because when we start asking who, we start looking at them from physical form aspect. And that's what we need to start avoiding doing. Personally, that's what I would suggest, because it's important for you to understand their mindset that they created at the time and that they personally had. So passing the Guru Gaddi on to Guru Angad Dev Ji, right? Just before I actually continue with Guru Angad Dev Ji, I just quickly want to mention the fact that according to Nihang Singh's history, it is said, it is believed, right, that Guru Nanak Dev Ji had passed on Shastra Vidya, right, to Baba Buddha Ji, and Baba Buddha Ji had passed it then on to Chheve Pasha, Guru Har Gobind Sahib Ji. So even those that believe the fact that Guru Nanak Dev Ji was all peaceful, he didn't do anything, he was not violent, he wasn't about violence, right? So that is something we need to sort of really, really look into carefully, because we can't just assume that. Remember the fact that Guru Nanak Dev Ji was traveling a lot, okay? He was traveling to many different places which he had gone through routes, right, where he wouldn't have known what kind of people would have been there. So understanding that, taking that in consideration, you can understand the kind of safety measures that he would have had to take as well for himself, right? So he would have been Gyan about the fact that what kind of martial art and warfare that we as community need to know. Hence why it is believed by Nihang, the fact that he supposedly had passed on these skills, martial skills, to Baba Buddha Ji, to then Chheve Pasha. So going to Guru Angad Dev Ji now, during their time, they then established education center as well as physical endurance center in Khadur Sahib. Then from Guru Angad Dev Ji, it went on to Guru Amar Das Ji. Again, they tried to obviously preach the idea of Guru Nanak Dev Ji and Guru Angad Dev Ji, so the idea of Sikhi across Hindustan. And they were able to then establish the Manji system. Now, the Manji system, the whole idea of Manji is referring to the fact that where you can preach. So it's like, again, it's educational centers, but from the point of view of preaching the Sikh ideology. And another thing which then going on to then next Guruji, Guru Ram Das Ji, they were able to establish a specific city known as Ramdaspur, and in the within Ramdaspur, right, which was later known as Amritsar. So they continued collecting the Bani that was recited by all the Gurus before them, and then when everything that they were doing, right, they wanted to make sure that no one is unaware about the idea of Sikhi. So they tried making sure the fact that all the Bani that was recited by all the Gurus before them, it needs to be compiled at some point. Hence why you had Guru Arjan Dev Ji, who came into being the Guru after them. They made sure the fact that it's all compiled within a Granth. Then that's when the idea of Ad Granth was put into practice, or it was sort of written. So when it was written, that's when they made it even more sort of easier for the Bani to be then recited again and again for it to be known, for the Bani to be known by everyone who came to hear it, listen to it, and who came to visit Amritsar eventually. So when all of this was happening, another thing which the Sikh Qawm started to do was to understand that they need to start now establishing themselves from martial point of view as well. So it's assumed that obviously the Guru Har Gobind Sahib Ji, he had 52 soldiers. This is a mainstream sort of narrative which is known amongst a lot of people. But those 52 soldiers were actually with they're from the Guru Arjan Dev Ji's time. Because what Guru Arjan Dev Ji was doing during their lifetime was they started trading. They started the whole concept of trading from trading horses from Central Asia. So obviously, when you go to trade, you need to make sure the fact that, especially at that time, in order for you to avoid being looted, they made sure the fact that they need to have guards that go with the people who go to trade, with the Sikh who go to trade. So when they obviously would send Sikh Gursikhs off to Central Asia, they would send soldiers with them. So they had 52 soldiers with them at the time. Then when Jahangir realized the way in which this new Qawm is developing, they obviously gave the farman of obviously executing Arjan Dev Ji, Guru Arjan Dev Ji. So the whole idea of execution was first sort of practiced against Guru Arjan Dev Ji during the time of Mughal Empire. That's why we call them as Shahid-e-Sartaj. So we give them that title because it's important for us to understand that the term Shaheed, being a Shaheed, right? It's very, very, very closely linked to being a Sikh, a Singh or Gursikh or a Khalsa. So Guru Arjan Dev Ji, when they became Shaheed, right after them, Guru Har Gobind Sahib Ji came in to become a Guru Sahiban. They established that whole concept of Akal Takht, so making a throne for the immortal being, which is the Waheguru. Also establishing a political authority. The concept of Midi Pidi and Shakti Bhakti was started to be practiced. They, during that time, had fought 4 battles. The first one was over Bars. Now, Bars is known to be golden falcon or white falcon, right? It's really interesting to sort of see why Bars was something, right, which was very considered to be, close to the Sikh Qawm at the time. Because Bars, if you sort of analyze the lifestyle of Bars, right, Bars is like seen to be the Darvish of the Parinde, so it's seen to be sort of the sort of kings of all the birds because it can go to the highest amount. It goes really, really high compared to any of the birds. So, but at the same time, their vision is very sharpened. It's sharpened to the point that they can, when they look down, they can even like pick out small insects. So it's the whole idea of, Maniva Matuchi. That's one thing that obviously that all the Sikh are told to practice. Think high, but remain humble at the same time. So first battle was against Shah Jahan, because Jahangir during his time he understood the way in which Guru Har Gobind Sahib Ji was able to sort of increase his army. He wanted to then sort of he became soft towards the Sikh Qawm, and he established a really good friendship with Guru Har Gobind Sahib Ji. But then after that, when Shah Jahan became the emperor, he his approach was a lot more aggressive towards the Sikhs, and that's why you had Chema Pasha fight having 4 battles. Another thing which I want to mention is the fact that imprisonment in Gwalior. Now, though it was done by Jahangir, right? But it was done because of the ministers around him. There was a lot of the times where some of the emperors, they themselves did not really have much of a problem with the Sikh Qawm, but it was a lot of the politicians or the ministers in those empires that created that feud between the Sikh and the Mughal Empire. So he was sent to Gwalior Killa, but after a few months, when they left Gwalior Killa, they obviously, like, the people around, so two key people, right? One of the most known sort of, well, one of the most sort of highly seen or perceived religious priest, he had sort of said the fact that, like Mia Mirji, he had said to Jahangir that, like, you shouldn't be doing something like that in where you put such a saintly figure into prison. So by listening to him and Noor Jahan, who was the wife of Jahangir at the time, they both recommended and suggested the fact that you shouldn't be imprisoning such a saintly figure. And because of on their say, then Jahangir obviously allowed Guru Har Gobind Sahib Ji to leave the Gwalior Killa. But now again, this is the whole idea of the spirit, right? Because the whole talk is about the Sikh spirit. The kind of spirit Guru Har Gobind Sahib Ji showed at the time was the fact that I'm not going to leave unless the other Raje that have also been imprisoned by you, right? If they can't be sort of made free, then I won't leave either. So then what was said by Jahangir at the time is the fact that whoever can hold on to your pillar, they can leave with you. So that's why Guru Har Gobind Sahib Ji made a special sort of chola which had 52 sort of like strings, which allowed the 52 Raje to hold on to them and then be able to leave the Gwalior Killa with them. And that's why when they arrived to Amritsar, hence why on the day of the body we celebrate Bande Chhod Divas as well, because on that day the 52 Raje, as they say, they were able to get free along with Guru Har Gobind Sahib Ji as well. Then after that they made Guru Har Rai Sahib Ji, they gave them the Gurgaddi, and during that time they maintained the army that Guru Har Gobind Sahib Ji had established, but they obviously took a very sort of much more sort of they avoided. So what they tried doing at the time is the fact that they made sure that they still preach the idea of Sikhi, right? Because the point for having an army was not to be offensive; it was to always be defensive. So during their time, no such thing occurred where they had to sort of be defensive. Hence why they maintained the army, but still preached the idea of Sikhi. Then Guru Har Krishna Sahib Ji as well, during their time, again, the idea of Sikhi was being preached. Then Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji's time. Now, Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji, being one of the sons of Guru Har Gobind Sahib Ji, not a lot of people know this, or they haven't come to know about it just yet, but Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji actually took part in one of the battles with Guru Har Gobind Sahib Ji, Battle of Kartarpur. That's why before being called Tegh Bahadur, they were known as Tyagmal. Now, from Tyagmal, they were gifted the name of Tegh Bahadur because they were really, really good at using the Tegh sword, right? So they were really, really highly skilled at that. Hence why when Guru Har Gobind Sahib Ji saw them, the way in which they used their Tegh in the battle, they were really, really happy, and like they appreciated it so much to the point that they want to gift that name to them. So that's why Tegh Bahadur, the name Tegh Bahadur came from there. They spent about 20 years meditating, just around 20 years or just above, in Bakala. So they eventually got the Gurgati in 1664, and they again, right, despite being tunny of using Tegh, they gave their Shahidi on the basis of saving another source, another religion. Now we know during the time of Guru Nanak Dev Ji, there was this whole idea of the fact that, like, we made sure we challenged the status quo, we challenged the caste system, we challenged the Brahminical system, we challenged the empire, the Mughal empire. But despite us as a Sikh Qawm not really practicing those concepts, we still showed the fact that we would not accept any sort of oppression against anyone, regardless, no matter if we don't practice that idea, but we still wouldn't accept it. Hence why when the Kashmiri Pandits came to Guru Sahib then obviously volunteered themselves to give the Shahidi, to set an example of the fact that, no matter what happens, we're not going to let this oppression occur on this community. So along with them, the three Sikh were also made Shaheed, Bhai Matidas, Bhai Satyaji, and Bhai Dayalaji. After that, Guru Gobind Singh Ji, the same Pasha, when they came into power, the first thing which they obviously made sure is the fact that they created the whole idea of Khalsa. During their time, they fought 14 battles. By having created Khalsa now, what they had done, they had made they had put in five key virtues into the Sikh Panth. And that's why, if you look at the names of the Panj Pyare as well, it starts with Bhai Dayaji, right? Bhai Dayaji, Bhai Dharamji, Bhai Himmatji, Bhai Mokamji, Bhai Sahib Singh Ji. So, इन्होंने सिंह जो बनाया भाई दया सिंह जी, भाई धर्म सिंह जी, जो सिंह बना के, they made sure, right, they all these five virtues, they should become deeply embedded within the Sikh Qawm, because daya, compassion, is the first thing that every Gursikh should have, every Sikh should be practicing. But because without daya, right, people become egoistic, and that's not what we want to be, right? To dharam, making sure what's right, yeah, defending the righteousness, having the himmat, so having that strength, right? These things, right? Being able to practice all these five things, that's when you become a sahib. You become sort of like, a sovereign being yourself. So having established the Khalsa and Anand Prasad, right, they added more to the Bani. So obviously before this, like I said, Ard Granth was compiled by Guru Arjan Dev Ji, right? Guru Gobind Singh Ji made sure the fact that they add Nawe Pasha's Bani as well, Guru Tegh Bahadur's Bani as well, into Ard Granth. And after which we now have the living Guru known as Guru Granth Sahib Ji. So Guru Gobind Singh Ji made sure the fact that Guru Granth Sahib Ji should remain as the living Guru for the Sikh Panth. So after having done that,
the iPad, right?
they made sure the fact that, like, every time.
You could just tap from yours, turn off the Bluetooth.
Every time there's sorry, I think. Okay, just yeah. So having made Guru Granth Sahib Ji as the next Guru, they made sure, like, everyone recites the Bani and understands and takes all the knowledge from the Bani. And that was the whole key thing. Now, after that, no one is known to be the next, sort of like, from physical point of view, no one is known to be the next sort of Guru. So Guru Granth Sahib Ji is our Guru after Guru Gobind Singh Ji. So yeah, going into next bit, please. Yeah, so I'm just quickly going to go through this now, because I know I spent quite a bit on the Gurus. So Lakshman Dev, who eventually becomes Banda Singh Bahadur. Before becoming Banda Singh Bahadur, he became Madhudas Bairagi. Reason being because coming from a Rajput family, they were able to practice a lot of martial skills, so such as archery, horse riding, and etc. So one of the days when they were hunting, they must have killed one of the female deers, and when they killed the doe, they saw the way in which she died along with the unborn babies as well. That's what made them really, really upset inside, and they left the house and they went on to sort of become Bairagi. So after that, they went on to establish if you go to the next slide then, please. So after that, they sort of traveled all around different places in north, and then eventually going to south, where they established their dera. And from there, they when they reached near Nadir Sahib, Nadir at the time, Guru Gobind Singh Ji, when they met them, they sort of saw the fact that, okay, yeah, this is someone, obviously known as Madhudas at the time. They saw Guru Gobind Singh Ji, they understood the fact that this person seems to be someone that's a much more divine figure. So when Guru Gobind Singh Ji met Madhudas Bairagi, they sort of bless them with the idea of the fact that your main thing is to get rid of tyranny in this nation. So that's what your duty should be, and that's when Maladas submitted himself to Guru Gobind Singh Ji and called himself the Banda. So that's after that they joined the Khalsa Panth, and they then started practicing Sikhi. When they took Amrit, now the term Amrit, this is going into spirit aspect of it again. The term Amrit actually comes from Sanskrit, which means Amritya. Someone that cannot be killed is someone that's immortal. Now, you can probably understand that that is the kind of mindset that the Sikh spirit should be having, where you consider yourself sovereign within. The term Khalsa itself as well, right? It comes from Persian language, Farsi language, which again refers to someone that's self-sovereign. This state of mind, having this state of mind, and like I said earlier, sort of deeply embedding it within the Sikh Panth is something that we should be able to sort of see that all these Sikh during that time had practiced, relentlessly. And after having trained with the Panth, they then left in their Sahib, because Guru Sahib then bestowed Bandaji with Nishan Sahib, Nagara, and 5 arrows of their own, Panj Atir. And they also sent them with 5 council of ministers, you can say, Panj Pyare, known as, they were all Bhai Bino Singh Ji, Bhai Khan Singh Ji, Bhai Bar Singh Ji, Bhai Daya Singh Ji, and Bhai Ram Singh Ji. When they reached Punjab, they obviously went with so it's the next slide now. So when they reached Punjab, they took Hukamname with them that Guru Gobind Singh Ji had given them. Having arrived there, they understood their main mission, right? The main mission is to be sabko meet hum apan ki na, hum sabna ke sajan. So we need to make sure that we are friendly with everyone and we get rid of the tyranny as well. Hence why, when I kind of missed down the PowerPoint as well, but it's to establish, it was to establish the Khalsa Soch, the Sikh Siddhant, where everyone can be self-sovereign, where there is no tyranny, where no one is oppressed at any point. And that is the kind of spirit Banda Singh Bahadur Ji brought to the land of Punjab, having been blessed by Guru Gobind Singh Ji. So they fought battles as well, Battle of Rupert, Battle of Rahul, Battle of Sadora and Logar and Samana as well. Battle of Chapachedi was the last one. Now, a lot of people assume the fact that Banda Singh Bahadur Ji went to take revenge. The concept of revenge, it doesn't go with the Sikh, right? Revenge is not what Sikh wants to take from anyone, right? If your feelings are to sort of take revenge from someone, that's not what a Sikh is about, right? So when they went, it wasn't to, if revenge would be, right, if you were to talk about revenge itself. Now, Wazir Khan had killed the Chote Sahibzade and the Vade Sahibzade during the Battle of Chumkor. Now, if that was the case, Banda Singh Bahadur would have done the same thing, where he would have killed Wazir Khan's son as well. But that was not what was done, right? It was serving the righteousness. It was to make sure you punish the Soch, the culprit of that Soch, which was Wazir Khan. So that's what exactly was done. And also, there's some sort of controversies sort of around Banda Singh Bahadur Ji as well. Like, I want to clarify that as well. If you're going to believe in those sort of controversies, right? Remember one thing before you do sort of believe into those controversies against Banda Singh Bahadur, is that Banda Singh Bahadur was handpicked by Guru Gobind Singh Ji. If he is being handpicked by Guru Gobind Singh Ji, right? That means, and if you believe in those controversies against Banda Singh Bahadur, the fact that he had done these things that were wrong, and etc., you're essentially questioning Guru Gobind Singh Ji as well. And that is not the kind of spirit we should be having, where you question Guru Gobind Singh Ji's selection. because they hand-picked Banda Singh Bahadur. Okay, so we can't be having that, even to the point that Panj Pyare, right? They volunteered to be the Panj Pyare, whereas Banda Singh Bahadur was selected by Guru Gobind Singh Ji to be the Jathedar, to be the leader, to take the Qawm forward, right? In order to establish and get rid of tyranny as well, and to establish Khalsa Raj. So, and also by setting example, and this is the reason why the controversies which are surrounding Banda Singh Bahadur all the time, the fact that he started calling himself Guru and everything else, that wasn't the case, because look at the person's source where he's dedicating the official government stamp, right, Khalsa stamp, as well as the coin in the name of the Guru and Waheguru, right? One of the stamps, like it says on the slide, Deko Teko Fateh, Nursad Bedrang Yaftaz Nana Guru Gobind Singh. Whether if it's the kettle or the sword, right? It's all to protect the weak and helpless and to feed them as well. So the victory, right, and the patronage can only be obtained under the power of Guru Nanak Dev Ji and Guru Gobind Singh Ji. Same with the coin as well. It's dedicated to not just the gurus but also the panth as well. If the reverse side, Zarb Khalsa Mubarak Paktaban Aman Uddar Zinnat At. That's and Takht Mashwarat Shah. That's referring to the Khalsa panth, the Guru panth. The whole idea of Banda Singh Bahadur trying to establish this new type of society, right? A type of society which Guru Nanak Dev Ji during his time had already preached. So it's to understand that these things that were done, they were done specifically to make sure the fact that Banda Singh Bahadur Ji understood what kind of mission Guruji wanted him to really accomplish and achieve. And so once, obviously, when this was being done by Banda Singh Bahadur, at that time, the emperor at the time, Bahadur Shah Zafar, he became really worried. He became so worried to the point that he died of psychological reasons, mental illness, they'd say. The key reason behind this mental illness at the time was the terror, you can say terror in a sense, but the terror, because I'm going to say things which will be unapologetic in today's conversation, because it created terror in the minds of the state. So the kind of establishment Banda Singh Bahadur Ji was making, right, it created terror for the Mughal Empire. So because of that terror, Bahadur Shah Zafar became so nervous that he literally had made this announcement around the country, the fact that anyone who believes in Guru Nanak Dev Ji, you come across them, you make sure you kill them, or you bring the head to me. So Nanak Prostan Rahar Ja Ke Bagatal Rasanam. So that was it was in Persian, and that was the announcement that was made around the country at the time, which was then followed upon other emperor that came after Bahadur Shah Zafar as well. And that goes to show how much of the Sikh spirit was a challenge to the state at the time. That goes to show, because even when we're referring to Guru Hargobind Sahib Ji's, like when he left the Gwalior Killa, some of the 52 Rajas, some of the Rajas amongst those 52 Rajas, right, they were the Pahari Raja, the same Pahari Raja whose descendants betrayed against Guru Gobind Singh Ji. And even to the point that Bahadur Shah Zafar, who first announced this, right, even he was helped by Guru Gobind Singh Ji, because Guru Gobind Singh Ji had given his few of his soldiers to help him becoming the emperor. So again, he became unthankful. So the point is the fact that the Sikh spirit has always been to give, right? But when, right, anyone's oppressed in a wrongful manner, they've always stood up time and time again to make sure the fact that no such wrongness is practiced at any point. And just to sort of go back to the whole idea of bars as well, right? The first battle which was fought by Guru Hargobind Sahib Ji, right? It's so amazing the way that he was able to put it. Like because when Shah Jahan challenged him for the battle, he made sure the fact that, okay, this is the time now that the state needs to understand the Sikh spirit. And what they had said, right, is amazing. They said, "Te baaz ab nahi dena, ab baaz taj tinse sab lena." I'm not going to give you the bars now. I'm going to take the throne off you as well. The point again is the fact that it's to make sure, it's to show the spirit, the fact that you cannot oppress anyone. No one in today's no one in society should be able to overrule anyone. We're all supposed to be acting equal and all supposed to be working in peace and harmony. We should be living in harmony, and that's the main thing. But if you're not going to do that, we're going to make sure the fact that we show you, right, how to be that then, whether if it's through physical means even. So yeah, when Banda Singh Bahadur was eventually then through the battles, they traveled from one place to another around Punjab, and eventually they were captured in Gurdas Nangal. From there, they were taken to Delhi for the execution. Now, it is known, these are the actual figures, of the fact that there were around 700 Singhs who were taken with them, and as well as 2,000 Sikh heads were cut off, and they were upheld and taken to Delhi as well. Now, most of the time, it would also be the fact that some of the Sikh women were killed, and their jewelries would be tied up to show the fact that they were young Sikh boys. So the state at the time went to that extent to kill the spirit. Yet, when it comes to execution of Banda Singh Bahadur, right, this is again talking about the spirit. When it comes to their spirit, Farrukh Sir, who was the emperor, he had executed Banda Singh Bahadurji's son, Ajit Singh, right in front of him. And we know the fact that, the whole, I'm sure a lot of people have seen some of the Sikh artwork where they show, the kids being cut off limb by limb, and for them to be made into hard around a lot of women. And sometimes, and the same thing happened with Banda Singh Bahadur as well, where the son was killed, and they put it around his neck. But look at the reply, right? This is what look at this stature of Banda Singh Bahadur. Farrukh Sir goes to him like, why are you smiling? Like, why are you seem happy about this at the same time, like though your son's been killed right in front of your eyes. He goes, I am happy because you've made my son Shaheed and you've made hard out of him. I'm sitting in front of you, right? You're sitting in front of me. Out of the two of us, I've already won, logically, but even in this battle, I've won as well because I'm the one, sitting with the garland. Though it's of my son. It's the spirit and the source again of a Sikh, right? It shows you that even in such a situation where your son is killed in front of your eyes, limb by limb, and made into a garland, and put around your neck as well, your spirit is still high. Your spirit still remains really high. So that's the whole point, the fact that they made the Singhs, right? And it's also observed by one of the British, because East India Company had arrived in Calcutta at the time. So one of the British person who was reporting back in Calcutta, he was observing this whole execution of Banda Singh Bahadur. When he observed, there was 100 Singhs that were killed each day. Each day, 100 Singhs were beheaded. What he observes is the fact that not one Singh faltered from the path of being a Gursikh. No one converted. And that goes to show the kind of spirit that Guru Gobind Singh Ji and all the Guru Pashas had instilled within us. So now going into Sikh myths and key figures. This is something said by Kavi Senapati. Now, in Anandpur, Guru Gobind Singh Ji had 52 poets. Kavi Senapati was one of them. What he says in one of the kavitas, one of the poems, is "Ek aur pe ho Khalsa, ek aur pe ho sansar." Khalsa is on one side, and the whole universe is on one side. That is the comparison made by this Kavi. Because a Khalsa, when they show themselves to be sovereign, right? They become outstanding. They become outstanding naturally. And there's one of the dialogues with Chenga Pasha that he had with one of the sort of Hindu sort of pundits in Kashmir, because what he had asked Guru Har Gobind Sahib Ji is the fact that you're a descendant of Guru Nanak Dev Ji, as in like you come from that religion. How comes you have such a big army, and why do you carry swords? Why are you practicing that? Because he had denounced everything, right? What Guru Har Gobind Sahib Ji had said, the fact that he had denounced all the wrong things in the society. So he said this key thing, which struck me when I read it. He said, "Batin fakiri zahir amiri." The saintliness is within. Sovereignty is what you see outside, and that's exactly what. If you look at what the couple I just mentioned by Kavi Senapati, is the fact that ek aur pe ho khalsa, ek aur pe ho sansar. ठीक है जी, मतलब कि एक पासे खालसा ते बाकी संसार एक पासे, क्योंकि उन्हां दोनों दा मेल ऐदा नहीं हो सकता. The Khalsa is way too sovereign. Like, the self-sovereignty it shows. And then came the missile era. During the time of missile era, what missile refers to is the different units, you can say, right? And all the units, they had a certain amount of soldiers and things. There was no real sort of bandish, they say, or limitation to which missile you want to join. It's totally up to you. But these missiles were usually established depending on the areas that people were in. And these are the key figures I'll mention in front of you. So Bhai Tara Singh Maan, Jathedar Darbara Singh, Nawab Kapoor Singh, Jassa Singh Ahluwalia, Jassa Singh Ramgarhia, Baba Deep Singh Ji, Baba Bigya Singh Ji, Akali Phula Singh Ji, Chadha Singh Ji. So there's a lot of these Singh, the Sikh at the time, they showed their spirit time and time again. Okay. And this one of the key things which I want to talk about in terms of spirit now as well, like during the time of when Banda Singh Bahadur Ji was executed, Shahidi was attained by them. After that time, it was again the same rule was established: the fact that any Sikh you see, execute them, bring their head to us. Right. So there was a whole mass execution or mass murdering happening against the Sikhs at the time. One thing I want to sort of point out as well. Remember, the sword is what we are against, not particular religion, not any religion. Where the Sikh or any person that believes in righteousness, the main sort of enemy is the sword, the ideology, the idea, not the faith. So please remember that. So now, when this again, the whole mass killing was being practiced within the Mughal Empire against the Sikh. Eventually, the Singhs kept on still, they still kept on fighting. They still kept on fighting again and again. So Zakaria Khan, who was the governor of Lahore, he said, because it was affecting a lot in terms of his finance. So that's why, in order to sort of not go into some sort of bankruptcy, he just said the fact that, look, I'm just going to give them, I'm going to give the Singhs a small area where they can rule upon. So then I don't have much of a problem with them, and they don't create a problem for me. So when he had sent this Nawabship, which is known as chieftain, right, making one of the Singhs as chief, when he sent that Nawabship, the reply of the Sikh at the time is amazing. It's beautiful, because when the Nawabship was sent, the Jathedar at the time was Jathedar Darbara Singh, and their reply was, "Hum rakat paatशाही दावा, जा इतको जा अगलो पावा." Sanu Guru Nanak Dev Ji ne Pasha banaya. He's made us the kings. Guru Gobind Singh Ji has made us the king. We don't need to be a chief for someone. We don't need to have that. So you can see the spirit of the Singhs of the time was so high, the fact that they did not care about the worldly status. What the Guru has given them, that itself is high enough. They don't need any of the higher status, or they don't need a status which makes them feel high about themselves in the world. So, and by that, what they also mean is the fact that so what they're saying is the fact that we've got our kingship in this world, right? If I can't achieve it here, I'll achieve it after life, after death, after shahidi, right? After fighting in a battle, once I become a shaheed, I'll become the Badsha of the Shaheeds as well. I'll gain Badshahi amongst the Shaheeds. So it's that such beautiful thought process behind, making yourself known as a person who's self-sovereign in every sense possible. That goes to show the spirit of them. And again, the Panch Pyare at the time when this Nawabship came through, they also refused it. But then Hukamnama was taken at the time because the Panch said we should take Hukamnama from the Guru. And according to the Hukamnama, what was said, the fact that anyone that's doing the seva in the Sangat, they should be given the Nawabship. So then that's when Kapoor Singh, Fazilpuria, who was the leader of Fazilpuria Missile, he was called upon and he was asked to take the Nawabship. And now look, again, talking about the spirit, right? The Nawabship is being given to you, and look at the authority of the Singh at the time. The Jathedar himself has refused. The Panch Pyare have refused, right? And Akalla Singh, right? Akalla Sikh again is keeping demands at the same time. It's like, okay, if the Panth is saying I should take the Nawabi, fine, I'll take it. But I have my own conditions as well. One, and this is where the whole idea of Halimi comes as well, humility comes as well into play. Nawab Kapoor Singh Ji said that I will take the Nawabship, but I'm not going to put Kalgi on. I'm going to make sure that I still have the sevas that I do. No one can take the seva from me, which was to clean the horse stables and to do the Chor Sahib as well, Bakri seva of Guru Granth Sahib Ji. So like, no one can take that away from me, and I'm still going to be having that. If you guys agree with it, only then I'll take the Nawabship. So this goes to show the spirit of the Singhs at the time. And as the history goes on, right, Chota ka lukara hoya, Vadda ka lukara hoya. When Vadda ka lukara happened, it is believed, right, that most of the Sikh population was killed. By ka lukara, what it means is the genocide, the Holocaust. So when the big Holocaust happened in 1762, it is believed the fact that most of the Sikh population was, was killed. Again, now coming to the spirit aspect, the Jathedar being Justice Singh Ahluwalia at the time, right? He sees the Qawm, most of the Qawm being killed, and after doing Garela Sahib, does the Ardas, and they say, right, that the Khalsa has remained. Those that have been killed, they have become khare, they've become, they've they've gone to the next world, and they've attained that cleanliness there now as well. They've become even more cleaner, right? We've also, the ones that have remained back, will make sure the fact that we become clean as well, by making sure the fact that we get rid of tyranny. But the ones who have attained Shahidi, they've become even more cleaner. That's the kind of mindset and the spirit. And then having gone through this big Holocaust, right after that, this was done by Abdali at the time, who was the invader from Afghan. It had only been 2 months, and after that, Sikhs again, they rise up and they they surround Sirhind. Now it is believed that Sirhind and Delhi, they had a very good connection with each other politically, right? They can Sirhind ਨੂੰ ਜੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਬੁਖਾਰ ਹੋਵੇ ਤਾਂ ਦਿੱਲੀ ਨੂੰ ਸਿਰ ਦਰਦ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਹੈ. So like if Sirhind is under some attack, Delhi gets nervous as well. So the point is the fact that when they had surrounded Sirhind, Ahmad Shah Abdali at the time, he asked Zakaria Khan, as I mentioned earlier, the governor of Lahore, he goes, who are these people? Every time I try to invade Punjab, these guys, they just rise up again and again. Despite me doing all these things, they don't seem to be faltered by it. And that's when the conversation happens. The fact that he's like, where do they live? And then Zakaria Khan replies, Jangala ਚ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਨੇ. ਅੱਛਾ ਸੌਂਦੇ ਕਿੱਥੇ ਨੇ? ਘੋੜਿਆਂ ਦੀ ਕਾਠੀ ਤੇ ਵੀ, on horse itself, right, on the back of the horse. And then he says, like, what do they eat? ਪੱਤਿਆਂ ਨਾਲ ਹੀ ਗੁਜ਼ਾਰਾ ਕਰ ਲੈਂਦੇ ਨੇ. They can survive on leaves as well. who's their leader, who's their jathedar, right? And this is the amazing reply, right? It's written in Sri Guru Pant Prakash as well. The fact that he says, what Zakir Khan says, is that Shahanshah khud hi ko paakat Khan na kahu kiye rakat. They argue, and the leader is Guru Granth Sahib Ji. But any singer that you see on horse, riding on a horse, they themselves claim to be self-sovereign and a king of their own, right? And then Abdali says, okay, well, where did they get this? How did they get the spirit to be so high? Where did they get it from? Where did they get this inspiration from, right? And then Zakaria Khan then replies as the fact that Murshid inka wali peo hai, inko abe hayat deo hai. Their Murshid, as in their Guru, the Waheguru and the Gurus, has made them self-sovereign through the essence of taking Amrit. Because by taking the Amrit, and obviously Abhi Hayat is actually Islamic terminology, right? Because Abhi Hayat is a certain place where it's known to be really pure in terms of its in terms of the history that it has. But Abhi Hayat referring to the fact that the water, right? That the Amrit, the nectar, is what makes these things their spirit so high. So again, it's like it goes to show the fact that the people, the state at the time understood this Sikh spirit so well that the Abdalis then reply was, if this form can survive like this, right? The way you're telling me, one day I guarantee you, they're gonna rule the region, right? That's one of the most known sort of emperors of Middle East, Ahmad Shah Abdali, saying that. And that's exactly what happens when you obviously look into history from 1799. Like the Maharaja Ranjit Singh Ji's Sarkari Khalsa established. So it goes to show the fact that the whole idea of spirit is time and time again practiced, and it's come out to be looking as bright and as strong as possible, which was essentially given to us by our Gurujis. So yeah. Now, do you want to ask questions, or shall we go into straight the farmer's produce part?
I'm indifferent. Let me see if there are any questions on the group chat. Thank you, first of all, for the amazing discussion. I really appreciate it. If anyone would like to ask any questions, please do so in the group chat. Otherwise, we can move on to the farmers' protest section. Okay, let's move straight on to the farmers' protest section then.
Right. So now the last part, I haven't written much in terms of the way I bullet pointed in all the slides, but this part is a reflection time now for us to look at the way in which the current morcha farmers' protest is taking place. Right? It's the spirit which the Sikh have brought into this morcha is exactly the same spirit that we've just sort of gone through. Because if you look at the whole spirit concept itself, it's something like these farmers, they don't know any of the gender, they don't know any of the nishans except Nishan Sahib, which was given to us by our gurus. So that spirit is instilled within us so deeply to the point that we give langar not just to the mortis, not just to the protesters, but we give langar even to the people, the police, right, who has obviously oppressed upon us. So the thing is the fact that like the idea of and saying something similar is actually practiced in past as well, which I'd like to bring in terms of serving langar even to those that we have our fight against. So at the time, right, when the Singhs were in jungles and stuff, because like I said, there was a whole sort of announcement made around the country the fact that anytime you see anything, you should be make sure you kill them and bring the head to us. Now, during that time, despite these battles happening between the state and the Sikh and the Khalsa, they would still invite their enemies to have langar with them, and they would make sure the fact that they come and have their langar as well. And it was said the fact that, oh, what if the langar is finished, and they as in if the enemies come and eat, what if they finish it all? And Singhs used to say that langar mustana hoga, like it was liked by so many people that it's good the fact that people enjoyed it, and that's what we want. We want people to enjoy what we offer. And in the same sense, in farmers' protests, right, it's the same thing. We see a lot of people going there, and they simply enjoy the environment, despite it being a protest. A lot of people understand the fact that they're not here to pick a fight with individual beings. They're here to challenge the status quo, the oppression that's been created by these laws, the new introduced laws, which has taken the roti away from the farmers. Another things which, because obviously this farmers' protest has been going on since last summer, but it only came into sort of mainstream light from September onwards. Then it became even more bigger of a news around the world from November onwards, right? Up until then, no one had kind of known these farmer union leaders. They only became known because they've come this far into Delhi. And who we need to credit are the farmers on the grassroots level, as well as the youth, right? As well as the youth, because the youth were the ones who went over those barricades. They made sure the fact that we reach, the borders of Delhi and make it known we are upset with these laws. And again, nothing was done from an offensive point of view. Everything was defensive. One of the videos that circulated a lot, right, during the time when everyone was coming towards Punjab, is one of the Singhs, right, where the water is with so much power, right, is being directed towards the people, and there's a Singh who's just taking it on his chest, on himself, right? Even the Bibiyan in the morcha, right, they're going forward, right? They're going forward with all determination that they can bring with them, because what is being given to us by the gurus. And again, nothing is offensive in that. Everything is defensive, and that's what the Sikh Spirit's always been about. To not take an offensive strategy, to always defend. Same thing now, going back to the Sikh at the time of 18th century. Pota Singh, Garcha Singh. And Pota Singh, Garcha Singh, right? They had gone, a lot of Singhs at the time, like I said, they were in jungles and stuff. They used to only go for darshan in gurdwaras when it would be dark, or during the time when they knew the fact that there was no government official people that they would come across. So one of the times they were hiding in the jungles, and there were two bypassers that were going, and they thought that they were Singhs, but they were having a conversation between each other, right? They thought that, okay, these are Singhs. One of them said about that it seems like there's a Singh inside that jungle there, and the other one said that if it was a Singh, they wouldn't be hiding, right? And that alarmed the ears of Bhota Singh, Garcha Singh. So when they came out of the forest, they just established their own chungi, is what they say, is what they said at the time, and they still say, but it's where you take toll tax to enter a specific area. So ਜਦੋਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਚੁੰਗੀ ਉੱਥੇ establish ਕਰਤੀ, right? And it's the same thing. What the protesters are doing right now, they start to make homes. They start to establish houses there, because they know they're here to make a point. They're here to establish, what is, they're here to make that point so strong that the state gets to understand it. So what they did, they were there to also make a point. The fact that Singhs are not, we're not killed yet. We're still here. We exist. So when the Mughals got to know about it, and Zakaria Khan had sent his small troops army, they were like, So this, sorry, not just before that actually, some of the bypassers, when they were going, they were like, okay, you have to pay us the tax before you pass this route. They were like, who are we paying it to? They're like, the Khalsa Raj. Where is the Khalsa Raj? And they said, their reply was, it's right here in front of you. It's right in front of your eyes. This is Khalsa Raj right here, because they had put the Nishans up there, and they were like, and they're like, where's your leader? Our leader is the Guru. And we're gonna, where's this money gonna go? It's gonna go to the Panth. So that sochani, that spirit, right? It remained so strong even during the time. It was just two of them, and when the troops came as well, in order to fight them, they were in order to take them take them for imprisonment, right? Not to have a fight with them. The Singhs were like, well, we want to make sure we gain shahidi. We're not here to be taken by you, right? And when one of the commanders of the troop had tried attacking them with Tir, right? And Bhota Singh Ji's reply was, "Tumro kaise tir jo humare cheer na sake sarir." What kind of arrows do you have? They can't even pierce through my body. It's like that is the mentality, and we see that. We see that in farmers' protests when the protesters are badly and they have been beaten and they've been oppressed to the point that we have Ranjit Singh, who just came out of jail the other day as well, right? Who was badly, brutally beaten simply for protecting the tent that was of women, and it was being disturbed by some of the writers, some of the BJP, their sort of spread youth and the people. But the point is that when that was happening, Ranjit Singh tried protecting, and he got taken into custody instead and was badly beaten. And what his reply was, "Maarde rahe, kudde rahe, par cheekan nahi kada sake." They kept beating me up again and again, but not at one point did they make me scream, because I was in job. My mindset and my mentality was only focusing on the Waheguru, the spirit of Waheguru, and that's exactly what we can see from when we take example from Bhota Singh Garcha Singh's time, and same thing with Sukha Singh Matab Singh, right? Masarangar, when he had taken over Harmandir Sahib and Akal Takht, and the kind of ill things that he was doing within the premises of Akal Takht and Harmandir Sahib. They made sure that they make a point that Singhs are still alive by simply beheading him and taking his sir to the Panth and showing the fact that we made sure that we served the righteousness. So in the same sense now with farmers' protests, we've seen the fact that it's been defensive at every point. We've always made sure the fact that we don't come across offensive, but the media has always narrated it as such, the fact that we are the ones who are being offensive, and and we have to always remember the fact that state media would always do that. State-sponsored media would always make sure the fact that protesters come across as criminals, right? So yeah, this is the only way I can conclude in that sense. If there are any questions, please do ask.
Okay, thank you so much. That's been a really amazing talk. I really appreciate it. Just looking at the comment section, there's a lot of people congratulating you. I just have a couple of questions myself, and hopefully that will get other people talking. So the first question is, what do you think made the Guru so resilient and brave? Where did they gain these teachings and this bravery from?
The Gurus.
Yeah.
Well, they gave us the teaching, to be honest. Like that's what I remember. Like they gave us the teaching, and they themselves don't really credit themselves as much. They obviously give it all back to the immortal being, which is the Waheguru. Right? It's something that comes within them, right? Nirantar Manyo is what they say, right? Continuously reciting and continuously thinking of God is what led them to be as what they were. But we know the fact that Gurus were they were immortal themselves. So they Sochini is something that we wanna be able to sort of, even if we can touch close to it, that itself would be it would be a lot, because the Gurus, like I said earlier as well, like the Guru Sahib, from physical point of view, we can't define them. Like they're undefined. Like they can't be put into set terminology. So their inspiration is something that what they would say is received from the Waheguru, but we know the fact that they were Johnny John. They were all known. So, like, if anything, I think it's the things they received the inspiration from the Gurus and the Waheguru.
Definitely, thank you. The next question is, which guru was the most influential in spreading the Sikh spirit? And I'd like to say they all were, but if there's anyone who's notable, then please let us know.
Oh, they're all, like you already said it, to be honest. They all were. They all made a point, to the point that even Chote Sahibzade and Vade Sahibzade, Char Sahibzade, they all made a point as well, right? The idea of Joto Prem Kilanka Jao, Sir Tali Gali Mere Ho, that's said by Guru Nanak Dev Ji. If you want to play the game of love, if you want to go on the path of righteousness, you have to bring your head on your palm to me, which we see, obviously, that was done by Baba Deep Singh Ji as well during the Battle of Amritsar in 1757. So, and then going back to the whole the Sahibzade as well. Now, this is something which I will link it back to the question as well, but it kind of is going off the question just a bit. Talking about the spirit of the Sahibzade, when Vade Sahibzade Baba Ajit Singh Ji was going to go to the battle, right? You know, Guru Gobind Singh Ji was very proud, obviously, and what he says, which has been written in a poetry form by Kavi Allah Yar Khan Jogi, is that नाम का अजीत हूँ जीता नहीं जाऊंगा जीता भी गया तो जीता नहीं आऊंगा. And that is the same spirit that the farmers protests have. Like we're undefeatable, right? We're undefeatable, and we can't be defeated in any form, right? So that's the whole point, is the fact that like they were all as strong and as inspirational as each other, to the point even Sahibzade they were as well. So it's the same idea again when it comes to Chote Sahibzade, when they were in the court of Wazir Khan. And this is the mindset of the Chote Sahibzade as well that we need to understand, is the fact that they understood the religious sort of system at the time, as well as the political. So they look at Suchanand, who was one of the ministers of Wazir Khan, points towards him and says, you know, Devi Biman unko. So we understand that he practices the caste system, right? Then both Chote Sahibzade point towards Wazir Khan. In here, Faujon pe maan hai. We know the fact that he uses his army to oppress the masses. And then they talk about themselves by saying, Ashik hai hum Khuda ke, hateli pe jaan hai. We're the lovers of that beloved God. And we keep our life on our palms because we're ready to give our shahidi whenever required. That same spirit is what we see as a reflection in farmers' protest today. So they all have been inspirational in every aspect throughout history.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that nicely ties in with my next question, which is, what do you think currently drives the farmers' protest? And how important is reading Punjabi and Gurbani in preserving our culture and the Sikh spirit?
I think if there's no Gurmat, then there's no point of sort of like leading your life in any other way, right? So understanding and reading Gurbani and understanding the language of Gurmukhi and Punjabi is really important, because when I say Punjabi, right, the reason why we need to learn Punjabi as well and understand the essence of Punjabi is because of a lot of history that's written in Punjabi, right? It's more authentic than what you would come across something written in English. Hence why I think it's really, really important for us, because language, right? The Boli, I think this is something I mentioned when we had our podcast as well a couple of weeks ago. Boli is something that gives us vision, and Boli also makes us understand the language as well. So the language is really, Punjabi language for us is really, really important for us to sort of learn and understand, because that's what's, and then obviously from Punjabi understanding Gurmukhi, it's really important for us to understand Gurbani, because the spirit is within the Guru Granth Sahib Ji, and that spirit is of all the gurus and of all the bhagats, put together. and that's what's going to drive us to be inspirational. Because, like I said, with the Ranjit Singh, who just came out of jail, he was like, despite me being beaten up continuously when I was taken to the police station, all I was doing was job, and that's what kept him going. Even Guru Arjan Dev Ji, right, when they wanted to, he was, and the hot sand was being poured upon him, he was still, doing the job of Waheguru, right? I see, although we are non-richer, we're still in peace and we're still enjoying everything at the time as well. And I see, battle, if in the battle, we're enjoying that as well. And it's the same thing with Baba Jujhar Singh Ji. When he was about to go into battle, Guru Gobind Singh Ji was like, well, because Baba Ji Singh Ji had fought a battle before, so he was experienced. Baba Jujhar Singh Ji had not, so he was only 14. But he was like, he says something really, really interesting. He says, "Ladna nahi aata mujhe, marna to hai aata. Khud badh ke sir teg pe dharna to hai aata." He goes, I may not know how to fight, but I know how to achieve martyrdom, and I know how to keep my head on the peg, on the sword. Like, it goes to show the fact that the spirit of gaining shahidi, like, because the Singhs and the Sikh, a good Sikh understands that everything in this world, right, all the worldly attachment is not something that's, it's not permanent. It's all temporary. But whilst you're here, you need to be sovereign and you need to show righteousness, and that's exactly the kind of spirit is what the Sikh and the protesters are bringing into this current morcha in India.
Thank you. Just two more questions, then I promise I'll let you go. Do you think the same intensity of the Sikh spirit is shown today, both within the UK and back in Punjab? And if not, what do you think we can do to strengthen our kind of relationship?
In with the current situation taken into consideration, a lot of Sikh within Britain have become more and more sort of in tune with the Sikh history. Because, like, I think, in the podcast that we were involved in as well, like in that, I think I'd mentioned the fact that a lot of authentic Sikh resources are being quoted recently on social media. That goes to show the fact that people have started to do the research, and they've also started to have been in contact with the people that are on the grassroots level right now as well, whether it's from whether if they are academics, or whether if they're like the protesters, or whether they're the news reporters, like yourself as well, your society, along with Boss as well. You guys did this whole collaboration of bringing, like all the academics and journalists together. Right? That goes to show the fact that the mindset of the Sikh in Britain and in India, right, is coming together because we have started to collaborate. We've started to share the common dialogue amongst each other. That's making us aware of our history, of our spirit, of what the Gurus were about, and obviously what the key aim should be as a Panth right now.
Yeah, I agree with that. Just one final question. How can we implement the Sikh spirit in our lives, in our day-to-day lives? So once this morcha is over and hopefully once we've won, how do we then go about implementing it in kind of, our average lives? Because it seems that whenever something happens and whenever an atrocity happens, we always come together, and that's great. But other than that, we tend to be sometimes quite divided.
I think it's important to understand the fact that जिस दिन कोई भी सिख जन्म ले ले किसी घरे ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਸੰਘਰਸ਼ ਉਦੋਂ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ. The day you're born as a Sikh, your struggle starts then, and you've won as well. You've won your struggle, because the very fact that you're a Sikh as well, or the fact that even not just being a Sikh, but anyone that holds the idea of righteousness and self-sovereignty, right, you've won. So the whole idea is the fact that, like, the way in which we can come close to the spirit is by researching, reading. First and foremost thing is, right, understanding Gurmat, getting the Gurmat, understanding the essence of Guru Granth, Guru Panth, which is Guru Granth Sahib Ji, right, and Guru Panth being the community, the Qaum itself. understanding the whole idea, the fact that there's nothing else larger or bigger and higher than Guru Granth Sahib Ji and Guru Panth. Always being able to solve, I think another thing as well I would suggest is the fact that reading, obviously, yeah, but understanding where these resources come from, because it's really important for us to understand is the fact that we can't be reading things which constantly criticize our own history, because that's going to lead us to be confused. We need to look at something that obviously talks about us. Like if I was to read about the Guru Maharaj, right, all the Guru Maharaj, I'm not going to read about them from the Mughal resources, because obviously for them they were, they were the enemies, or they were against the state. So I'm not going to read what the state has to say at the time. I'll read what the Guru Maharaj themselves said, or the Gur Sikhs around the Guru Maharaj at the time said. Right. So what we need to do is get closer to those sort of resources, which talks about the Qawm in high spirit manner.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions before we wrap up for today? I just want to say thank you once again. It's been such an amazing talk, and I really have learned a lot.
I mean, like I said earlier as well, like whatever I've said today, anything I've said, I know I've missed out on things as well. And the thing is that like anything I say or anything anyone also like reads into, there's a lot more people out there who will know more. But anything I've said today is limited to what I know, and because no one can become all known except the Guru themselves. They've become all known. They were all known. So anything I've said today is limited to what I know, what I've read so far. But I really hope I get to read more, and I really hope the fact that people up there, right, they get to sort of read more as well, and just keep reading and keep circulating, like the kind of resources which we as a Qawm need to get close to, because that's important. Like it could be as small as paying someone as a patron who's working towards something in the Panth, right? These are the contributions we can make. So yeah.
No, definitely. I think it's just a journey of forever learning, and that is what brings you closer to Waheguru, right?
Definitely. I mean, yeah. There's no word that we can I can say to sort of like describe the essence of Waheguru. So like it's yeah, it goes without saying, like that's what we need to be aiming to do.
Definitely. Well, thank you everyone for attending our last event of the year. I hope you found it insightful. I'm pretty sure you have by the comments. Thank you once again, Rajwath and Faji, for hosting the event alongside Imperial Sikh Society. We look to see you in the next academic year. Thank you so much for attending, guys.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.